You are listening to Ace Comicals. I'm Greg, and today I'm joined by my co-host Rahul. Let's go! Greetings one and all, and welcome to Ace Comicals episode number 74. Today it is me, Ray.
Hello.
And returning guest, Marv.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, so we're down a Leon, up a Marv today. That's how this works.
It's an unfortunate trade.
Yeah,
Leon's
I was
going to say the world's best cheat code.
up, down, left, right, A, B, C, and start. And that's how you're not Marv.
Yeah, I'm the hidden skin for the character. Exactly,
yeah. You have to finish arcade mode 6 times without getting touched.
Not when Marvin's around.
That's for damn sure.
So, how have we been, guys? What has been the order of the past 2 weeks? I mean, Ray, it's been a while since we've had you on, actually.
It has been a while. I don't know what the fuck I've been doing in all this time. It's been weeks. I'm looking at my calendar right now and everything's blank. So I don't know where I've been or what I've been doing.
Maybe we're actually not connected to you. Maybe you're in some kind of like void realm somewhere. That's why the calendar's blank. That's a clue.
I'm just in the pocket dimension, but I'm kind of like digging it in this pocket, just nice and cozy in my own little pocket.
I was going to say, it's like that episode of Buffy where Willow's just sort of like adjacent to everyone else's reality, so like they can't see or feel her. But then you end up really enjoying it because you're like, I don't have to deal with any of these people.
Yeah, it's like the end of the Silent Hill movie. That sounds great. It's like go home and sleep on the couch.
So you're in a pocket dimension. So I've just got this image now of the ice cream man, Rick, like pulling you out of his shirt pocket. Slowly at the end of this, after the cast has been recorded.
I said it was pleasant, Greg. No, like I've been home for Navratri, which was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's going to be Diwali this weekend. So like, it's mostly just family stuff and like chilling at the weekends and sorting out house things lately. That's what it's mostly been.
Awesome.
Yeah. How about you guys?
Yeah, I've been good. I've been to see the Joker movie. So that's pretty much all I've done. That's like the thing. I went to see the Joker movie.
That was the highlight of your month?
Tumbleweed, whatever. Yeah, you know, like I've not done a lot. Like I kind of fell off the wagon with Inktober because I just couldn't keep up. Like the ideas weren't flowing enough, and I was just like, I just can't keep up with this. And
also, I think like being online and watching that stuff, and I think people get a bit militant about having to do the same thing every day. The whole point is it's meant to get your juices flowing and inspire you. And I think as long as you've done some, and you try to do it relatively consistently throughout the month, you'll be fine. Yeah. Like you got another week and a half.
Yeah, I'm not very good at being online all the time as well. So that's the other one. Yeah. You guys have both seen the Joker, right?
Yeah, we went to see it. I can't remember how long ago now.
I have that on my calendar. Hang on. It was about 2 weeks ago today, in fact.
Yeah, and so before we get into that, let's just let Marv sort of like give us the lowdown of where he's been for the past 6 issues.
Well, I've been listening intently, as I'm apt to do. I do love this podcast, and I'm very happy to guest on it again. Gush. But no,
I'd like to thank my mom and my sister. Anyway.
Greg, did we pay him to say that? Or where did that come from?
I'm hoping to get a free T-shirt at the end of this. No, just same old, really. Work and video games. I'm going on holiday in 7 days to Gran Canaria, so I'm looking forward to that. That'll be, if I was doing this podcast in 2 weeks' time, that would have been the thing to talk about. But right now, it's just the lead up to that, really. So trying to sort out travel money and making sure online check-in is all done and everything. And apart from that, Joker movie.
Yeah. So this Joker movie that everyone seems to be talking about, this newfangled thing. What did you guys actually reckon to that? Just briefly, because I don't want to get into this too deep. Like, because I know there was like all this stuff surrounding it, and me and Leon had a little bit of a conversation about the fact that, like, in the previous podcast, actually, about the fact that we weren't entirely sure where all this discourse was actually coming from. Because, I mean, it seemed to have been coming from 2 angles, but when you've actually seen the film, it's like none of that actually
applies
sticks
to it at
yeah,
all.
it doesn't really apply to it. Yeah, it's all conjecture
if you stretch it really, really thin, then you can come to those readings. But there's so many. There's some really good tweets that I've seen that sum it up a lot more eloquently than I could, which is where I'm pulling from now. But it's almost like both sides of the aisle were really just pulling for this to be some kind of this is going to be like a trigger for some incel who's going to do a mass shooting, and it's like, well, no, it's a movie. It's a movie about a character who is kind of rooted in those themes already before all this sort of. I say before this mass shooter stuff became big. I mean, it's always been big in America, but before it became as regular in the news as it's been in the last couple of years. And yeah, it's almost like people on the left, and I'm left leaning. I think we're all left leaning on this podcast. It seemed like they were just preemptively ready to just shit on the movie and be like, yeah, this is incel fuel. If you enjoy this movie, then you're part of the problem. And then you've got people on the right sort of having their own reasons for sort of digging at it before it even comes out, or putting it up on a pedestal before they've even seen it. And then it comes out and it turns out it's just a really enjoyable movie. Exactly.
It's it's got nothing, as far as I could see, none of what people were throwing at it stuck to it. All the things...
Marv said, I think people on both sides of the aisle were expecting or hoping it to be more incendiary than it was, and I think ultimately it had very little to actually say, and therefore couldn't really spark the kindling of anything, because it's deliberately apolitical. In a way that that's my main criticism of the film, is that I have a couple. It's trying to wear Martin Scorsese's clothes, but there's the wrong man is inside that suit. And the lack of the same, of that genius brain as well. I think that it's wearing it's like imposter syndrome, or it's playing imposter to a bunch of different styles. And I think all of the best bits, all the things that it does pull off, aesthetically and stylistically and whatever, are born of other creators, and they're emulated really well. And they're not the work of Todd Phillips, who I think is the biggest weak point of this movie. And Joaquin Phoenix does a really good job. I think he's it's a great performance. He's really physical, and he has that stage presence. Mm. But one of my, I can't remember who it was. I think it must have been another podcast I was listening to. But one of the things they pointed out was at the end of the film, somewhat spoilers. I mean, but not really. But you have these protesters who are holding up these signs that say resist, but they're not saying what they're resisting to. They're so clinically and calculatedly trying to not gesture towards any particular political standpoint, that it has ultimately nothing to say. And I think that's the biggest flaw of this film. It's a lot of style and not a lot of substance.
I don't think I actually noticed that. I think because I didn't notice what they were protesting against. I didn't look at the side. I knew they were protesting against the rich, it was the poor versus the rich, it was the whole
class inequality.
Yeah, class warfare thing. But that's all that's what I got from it. I guess they were resisting the rich because they didn't want Wayne to be mayor, did they? Mm-hmm. But I mean, I could see it drew influence from a million different Joker stories and just mixed them all together into one big stew. It's got the side of things where he might not actually be the bad guy, but he is the bad guy thing, which is that's White Knight. You've got a lot of Killing Joke in there. It's you're watching this and people are saying that this is supposedly fuel for a fire, but have you read Killing Joke? It's the same thing. The world, basically the whole point is the one bad day. It's the one bad day thing. And
I don't know where the fear mongering for that really came from. I feel like that was manufactured outside of the movie. I don't get it, because we've had all the arguments of how Fight Club, we had all of that stuff, and it's basically doing the same kind of thing. It's not. Here's the thing. I remember hearing up ahead that it was extremely violent and that it's extremely shocking and all of this and that. And it turns out it's actually quite tame. The violence isn't really a thing in the movie. It's not that graphic. It's not any more than, it's not 18 rated or whatever, as far as I could tell.
No.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't understand where that was being pulled from, and I feel like it was more just like hopefully incendiary than it turned out to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's Certificate 15. The worst thing that happens is he shoots a few people.
Well, there's one thing that's worse than that, but we won't go into.
Yeah, but that's...
Even that is nowhere near as bad as some of the stuff that's been in movies recently. And
exactly.
It is. It does seem like you said, people just sort of trying to create fire from nothing.
Yeah, and I think it's the wrong argument to focus on, but like it seemed like such a big thing, and maybe it's to pull the wool over the eyes that like I actually don't think it's that great a movie. The more I think about it, the less I like it. Although I did enjoy the experience of being sat in the cinema and like having it wash over me.
Yeah,
because it looks beautiful. Like it's all like staged really well, and like it's visually really stunning.
Yeah,
and I feel like it has the Michael Bay, Zack Snyder deal where it knows what moments it wants to fulfill, but then it doesn't know how to thread the links between those moments.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I enjoyed it, and in retrospect, as well as in the moment, I think I enjoyed it slightly more than you did, Rahul. But I can agree with that definitely. I think one of the things I said when we came out the cinema was it watches as if it's a really good adaptation of an Elseworlds Joker origin comic.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say.
I don't know what those words mean when they're put in that order. Please explain.
Okay, so Elseworlds is this thing that DC do, which is kind of like Marvel What If, but not.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, they take a character and they kind of like warp that character in some way. So you've got... I mean,
the thing that I love about what this film like promised to be is that thing I think I've mentioned on the cast before, where I want that these companies have spent 10 years setting up these universes. So, like, we've got the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they've established who all these characters are, and they've had this template for a whole decade where they basically make the same film in terms of its tone and structure and everything over and over and over again, and it works. It's a really good formula because it gets people in seats. And now that they've established this world, they could do something really different with it. I want to see like a black and white philosophical, 2-hour conversation on screen between like Bruce Banner and the Vision. Like that's what I was kind of hoping this would lean towards. Like, it's we know what the DC universe is. We know what Gotham City looks like. Let's have a different genre in this, this comic book trapping.
Yeah.
And it only half delivered on that, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but I want them to do more. I really want them to like push this envelope. I feel like DC are the ones who are actually going to be able to pull it off.
I was going to say it did only take a half step, but it is a half step. It's sort of the start of looking at different ways to do it, because obviously there's been a lot of memes going around with like, Marvel fans when they watch Joker, where's the CGI beams? Where's the big final act conflict and stuff? And it's like, yeah. But that is good because it is a character study movie. Whether it was an entirely successful or not, it was a character study movie that didn't have to rely on Joker versus Batman.
Also, inherently, the Joker doesn't have superpowers.
Yeah.
The only thing he's good at is taking a punch and causing chaos. That's what the Joker is. Like he's literally like, you can throw whatever punishment you like at him and he'll get back up. That's like, I guess that's his one superpower. Like for his size, he can take a punch really fucking well. But like, there's just, it's the way, the best way I can describe this Joker movie to anyone who's not already seen it is like, imagine if someone made a enormous paper mache sculpture of Michael Douglas in falling down out of pages from Joker books. That's what, and then like dipped it in Taxi Driver.
Just tarred and feathered in Michael Scorsese.
Yeah.
like a wonderful tie-dye factory, but it's all sort of melted down film reels.
Yeah. that's how I that's how I can describe it. But yeah. That is that is the Joker. And for all of what we're saying about it, is actually a really good film. If you are a comics fan, I think it is still a good movie, and it's a good Joker movie. It's a good movie about a DC character. You will enjoy it I enjoyed it as a Batman and Joker fan. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this portrayal of the Joker. Parting word, like the last thing I want to say about it is that it would not be the film it is if it wasn't for Joaquin Phoenix. If they had anybody else in that role, it wouldn't work.
Very true words.
Yeah, it just would not. Yeah,
he carries that film.
That entire film is in his backpack. Like that is that.
Backpack. I like that little Joker just walking around with like a tiny little like Hello Kitty backpack.
Dora the Explorer or Hello Kitty backpack.
See, as you were starting the sentence, I was in my head thinking, yeah, it does rest on his shoulders. I guess like a backpack, yeah.
It's in his backpack, yeah. Get out my backpack, Todd Phillips.
Okay.
No. That's it, yeah. So, that is the Joker movie. And I guess from there, that brings us on to the first comic that we all read, which was The Joker, Year of the Villain #1, which is a kind of a one-shot story about the Joker to do with the DC Year of the Villain thing, which is to do with some larger, wider event.
Have you read anything else into the Year of the Villain stuff? Because I didn't know that was a thing until I picked up this comic.
No, it's been going. It's been going since May, and it's all to do with the fallout of Dark Knight's Metal, which is also what the one of the other comics on our list is as well. They're all like intertwined in some way.
I did love that when I read the two comics that we're referring to that we're not spoiling for the podcast right now. I love the fact that they both kind of had roots in Dark Knight's Metal, and the fallout of that is very, very nice.
Yes.
Am I right in thinking there's something to do with like Bane having taken over Gotham City?
That's in the main Batman continuity at the moment.
Okay, interesting.
So it's set within that, but it's to do with this this Year of the Villain thing, which is happening right now, which is Lex Luthor, or as he is known at the moment, Apex Lex. Sounds like a wrestler, yeah.
What?
Apex Lex. He's half human, half Martian, all Lex.
Yep, Apex Lex.
I don't like it.
He's recruiting villains to join Perpetua's cause in exchange for giving them a source of unlimited power in response to Justice League recruiting heroes from around the universe to fight the new Legion of Doom. So it's going to be some massive crisis involving everyone again.
Oh, isn't
this
it
is DC Comics.
Crisis on how many Earths? Oh my god.
Yeah, the Batman Who Laughs is back in this as well.
Of course.
Oh, cool.
He's got a lot to do with it all, yeah. Because he's like master of the dark multiverse, isn't he? He's like the kind of like epicenter of the dark multiverse. He's the death metal album at the bottom of the stack. So I do like me some Batman That Laughs. I like the idea of the Batman That Laughs, I think.
He's one of the only sort of Dark Knight's Metal characters that really stuck with me after reading the main paperback.
I really liked The Drowned as well.
Yeah, The Drowned was cool too.
Yeah. There was actually all of them were pretty cool takes. The only one that I thought was a little bit weak was The Red Death.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the rest of them were pretty cool. I just like the idea of like these being Batman's biggest failings kind of thing. And then like but like Batman so these are points in a story or whatever where Batman has made the wrong choice. And because of that wrong choice, things have gone down a very different spiral and ended with some horribly twisted version of the Batman ideal or the Batman idea. And I just like the fact that it teeters like, and this is going to come up again in this podcast.
Yeah.
That it's on such a fragile thread, all of it. I mean, I would love to see them do this with other heroes as well, because as much as I love Batman, I'd love to see them do this with like Superman or something. Like,
see, the thing with Dark Knight's Metal for me was, like you were spinning off from what you were saying, the concept, the idea of it being Batman just making one wrong decision, again having one bad day, and just everything spiraling out of control. The idea of that was so good to me that it's one of the few like big crossover titles where I enjoyed the what's the word I'm looking for? Not the spin-offs. What am I thinking of? You know, where you have the all the side stories. Thank you. All the tie-ins I preferred, because the tie-ins where you had the origin stories of each of the Dark Knights.
Yeah, they each got their own one-shot, and it was so good. And
their one-shots are so incredible.
Yeah, they are. Ray, if you could deal with this kind of comics bullshit, I'd recommend it to you.
I think you know that I can't.
Well, the thing is, because they are all just one-shot origin stories, they are really good and really easy to read.
Yeah, and it's really fun.
You don't even need to read Dark Knight's Metal, just read the origins of all the Dark Knights.
It's really fun, and it will get you throwing horns and punching holes in drywall and...
Changing your name to Kyle.
Well, not quite that, but it's... No, it's got like the whole, like, you just... It fires you up. Like, I wanted to listen to metal after. And you know what, right? There is actually, like, a couple of tracks that were made for Dark Knight's Metal. There's a Jerry Cantrell track, Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains, and then there's a track by Chino as well from Deftones. So they're both pretty good songs, actually. I will dig out the names and stick them in the show notes. But it's really cool. And so Apex Lex. And we are given this Joker one shot, which is kind of like a little bit of an exploration of what the Joker is. So from the top, we'll just give you the credits. So we've got
what a bunch of credits, by the way.
Oh yeah, huge. Yeah,
this
so
is the whole reason that I wanted to read this one shot.
First thing you notice about this is the fact that it's got pencilers and inkers, which is, I mean, this comes up a couple of times in this podcast, but not something you see very often nowadays. So we've got John Carpenter and Anthony Birch writing.
Sorry, wait. John Carpenter.
John Carpenter, yeah.
John Carpenter.
Yeah, John Carpenter.
The John Carpenter and Anthony Birch writing. You've got pencils by Philip Tan. You've got inks by Philip Tan, Jonathan Galapian, Mark Deering, Danny Miki, colours by J. David Ramos, and letters are by Gabriella Downey.
I just want to point out, this is Anthony Birch of like Borderlands 2 lead writer Anthony Birch fame.
Yeah,
if that means anything to any listeners.
It doesn't show.
It's weird because the reason I picked this up was on the strength of both of those names, but knowing that in my head, John Carpenter and Anthony Birch feel like oil and water in a way, because like John Carpenter being horror master and Anthony Birch being like meme lord, but actually quite funny. Like I like what I don't particularly like his sense of humor in the Borderlands series or in Borderlands 2, but I do kind of like his web series on YouTube, which is Hey Ashley, What You Playing, where he does like short video game related comedy skits with his sister, who is Ashley Birch, who is the voice of characters in Life is Strange and Horizon Zero Dawn, etc. She's quite big these days. But I was interested to see what it was based on those guys.
And John Carpenter, I believe, was the name that attracted you, Marv. Am I right?
Yes. As I was scrolling through the annals of Comixology, I saw this, and I like me a good Joker story anyway. But writer John Carpenter, I was like, I have to see what this is about.
So, I mean, I'll go through the sort of like the blurb that we are given on the Previews World site. So, in the year of the villain, what's a clown prince of crime to do when the world has started to accept doing bad as the only way to live? Out-bad everyone else, of course. The Joker is on a mission to get his mojo back and prove to the world that there's no greater villainy than the kind that leaves you laughing. This special one-shot is co-written by legendary film auteur John Carpenter, The Thing and Halloween, and Anthony Birch, the Borderlands video games, making for a Joker comic that's twisted in ways you never imagined. And, so first impressions, guys. Start with you, Marv, if you want.
I would have to say that I really enjoyed it. I was sort of in two minds about some of the subject matter. I know, like briefly speaking to Rahul about it, that he had some things he's going to say. But yeah, I overall I very much enjoyed it. I won't go into details, but there are some very, very nice Joker-related callbacks in this that I thoroughly enjoyed. And as a story about the Joker and the Joker as a villain who is an evil person, I think it's a very well done story.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of turns in this comic that I actually really do enjoy, because, like, for the most part, I think, as Marvyn hinted to, I was kind of down on it, but I don't think that's the comic's fault. I think I'm a little bit weary of these kind of solipsistic stories about, like, that are so dark and nihilistic and all about this anxiety of loneliness. I don't think it's what I am really into at the minute, but like I said, there's some moments where some of the costumes that the Joker and his accomplice in this story don, and the things they do, are actually really interesting and kept me engaged throughout the whole of this book.
Yeah, at its core, it is a story about choices. Like, we all have choices, we all make choices, and with the Joker being who the Joker is, and his character being conflated with mental illness, like, so closely linked, because the whole thing is, oh my god, the Joker's crazy, you know. That's like what a lot of people go for, that the Joker is just this this epitome of sickness, of wrongness and everything else, but it's because he's mentally ill, right? Well, I mean, that may or may not be the case according to this book, and even if you are, it's just like the whole point is that you make choices, and things don't necessarily have to define you, and you don't necessarily have to do you don't like the point of it is, it's, you can be good and bad, and you don't necessarily have to have certain things as excuses and things like that, I think, is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead, Marv.
No, just moving off of that point is, you don't have to do what the implications of the labels that society puts on you. You know what you're expected
exactly
with that label.
Yeah, exactly, and yeah, it's to do with that, and it's to do with making choices, and it's to do with the fact that the Joker, you know, at the core of his character is simply an evil, twisted person. You know, he's not, yes, he's crazy, but he's not doing things because he's necessarily crazy. He's doing things because he's evil and twisted, and because he's the Joker.
Yes.
And we've some really cool moments in this book, actually, and the art is actually really nice. I noticed, like, some really fine pencil work, actually, and, like, some of the detail just really shines through when you look. Some great panels, like some panels that are framed with the laugh.
Yeah.
Actually, I really enjoy those. As we're on this kind of, like, tour through the city, the Joker's, like, wilding, basically, with this kid. They're just, like, going on a tour through the city and just causing havoc.
Well, that's the thing. The framework of this story is that he's picked up, like, this straggler kid who has escaped with him from Arkham Asylum, I assume. And we see the Joker reflected in this guy's story, who we only ever know as, I think, the Six of Hearts, if I'm not mistaken. And, like, that's the guy's name as given to him by the Joker. And it's, to me, it's kind of like the reflection of them to each other, and, like, how, like you were pointing out, that the choices you make when you've been assigned the status of, say, something like insane, and what that means about the things that you do then, based on whether you're labeled as insane or not. And I don't know, I think I feel like this is undercooked, this idea, very slightly. And I think I'm a little bit disappointed that it wasn't just, you know what the biggest takeaway for me for this is that it's not as horrific as I was hoping it would be. Being John Carpenter, I thought it turned out to be a lot more, like, shallow is going to sound like too harsh a phrase, but it's kind of what I'm like. Think shallow, but less intense. Maybe like deep fried. I don't know.
Like standard Joker, rather than something different with a John Carpenter twist on Joker.
Yeah, with a John Carpenter horrific twist, like genuine horror. And this does go to some places where it's like it's tense and scary, and it has these family connections and the things that the choices that you make and how they influence other people and all of that. But it wasn't as like deep horror that I was expecting, I think.
Well, no, but it's almost like a John Carpenter version of a classic Joker. So because he's got the fun. So it's not Joker like
Death of the Family or something.
It's Joker
No-face Joker.
it's Joker punchline Joker, fun Joker.
Yeah.
And he has a like a massive elaborate gag in this one. But like, I mean, like, there's some really great panel work in this as well. I mean, like, I especially love the moment with Condiment King.
Yes, I was so happy to see him in there.
Yeah, and then ends up drowning in a pool of mustard. Face down in a pool of mustard. But I love that. And there's this really nice point. It's a really nice bit, actually. Like, one of my favourite bits of art in this is where we see the switch flip in Joker's head and we see him come up with the joke. And it's all dark and shadowy, his face. And this is where he's turned on Condiment King, and he's got Condiment King's weapon. He's holding it against Condiment King's head. And he's like, you're a scourge on this city, Condiment King, a villain, and you know what villains deserve. And when you see this picture of the Joker in the background, this is actually probably one of the more like sort of like horror-laced moments, actually. He's got bats coming off him.
Yeah, I love that.
I will give you that. Like, I think something they do really well with this version of the Joker is he's like this wild-eyed, terrifying, understimulated Joker. Like, he's constantly looking for the next thing that will stimulate him. Yeah. And he, like, flip-flops hard between, like, jokey, like, the wisecracking Joker and then suddenly a really serious, stern-faced, like, dangerous Joker. I think that comes off the page really well,
and that's what I really liked about it, and that's what I meant when I said a John Carpenter take on a classic Joker, like a Cesar Romero style, like a bit of Cesar Romero in there, and a bit of
almost a bit of the Jack Nicholson as well.
I like Mark Hamill
coming off what Rahul was saying with the switch between the funny and the serious and the intense and the jovial. I love the bit when they're in the car and Joker tells a joke and the kid doesn't laugh. And there's just a single panel of the Joker looking really bored, and then he just puts a gun to his head and he says, "Say something fun," and you're just sort of like, "Oh God, what's going to happen next?" You
see, that for me is the Mark Hamill moment. That's like Mark Hamill Joker, because I can just imagine that with the TAS theme as well. And he's like, like the glum face. Yeah, and he's like. And the TAS Joker's like not having a good day and he's got like the glum face. I love that frown. Oh my God, that frown's amazing. But like, I can just imagine him sat there like that in the car with the do 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 do. Say something funny. Holds the gun out to his head kind of thing.
Yeah.
With the score in the background. But my favourite moment in this entire comic is the light bulb moment where he realises what he's going to do and he's like, that's how I'm going to have fun today. And he turns on Condiment King and then they get a couple of cheap costumes and the rest is history.
Yeah.
And I do love it. I do love it for that, actually. I did really enjoy
the little adventure that they go on after that moment. Yes, it is really, really good.
No, go on.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, again, spoiler-free, but towards the end of that little adventure that they go on, there's, again, a very big callback and shout-outs to the panel work in that, because it's frame for frame, almost identical to the story that it's referencing.
Yes.
If you know what I'm talking about, Greg.
Yes, 1,000 times yes, and I'm not going to spoil it. But I know exactly what you're talking about, and it is panel for panel.
Yeah.
Or pretty much panel for panel, and it's framed in the same way. And it's a perfect way for this to actually end, I reckon. I think it's a perfect way to end it, and that is a real horrific moment, actually.
Yes, one of the most horrific moments in DC history.
Yeah, but like in this book, it's really visceral and horrific. Like, yeah. It's actually worse in this than it is in the first time round.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It had me worrying about how the comic was going to end.
Yeah, exactly.
Based on how the original turn went.
Yeah. Oh, I love.
Yeah, I actually know what you're referring to here.
Yeah, I love the bit that like kind of defines the Joker for me in this as well is where he's choking the Joker, and then the Joker just goes, whispers harder.
Yeah,
it's so good.
That's actually I think that's my favorite panel in this whole comic.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that moment so much that I literally like jumped up, ran to the bathroom where Dion was doing her hair, and had her read that page.
that just defines the Joker for me. Like, he enjoys it. So yeah, but he enjoys his work. That's the Joker.
I mean, the thing is, the only thing I don't like about this is because we've been very like Joker centric on talking about this so far, but we haven't talked about his accomplice, the character who we are actually seeing these antics through the eyes of, and like really this story is about like the influence that the Joker has on somebody who's really vulnerable and is looking for some level of like comfort or a need from somebody else, and he finds that need in the Joker. And like I guess I'm just a little bit uncomfortable about the overarching story about this kid who in crossing the line, he needs to cross his own like line of acceptability before he needs to retreat back from it and realize what he's done wrong and realize that he's not okay with the choices that he's made, and whether he's culpable, how culpable he is over the things he's done, and like the influence that genuine evil has had on him. And I don't know, I feel like that's, like I think I said earlier, like I feel like that's a little bit undercooked and undersold, and then also leads into like this really horrific violence towards the end. And I don't know what it's trying to say about it. Although there is one of my favorite moments. I really don't know how to do this without spoiling it, but there's a really there's a really interesting like non sequitur comment where like this moment of extreme violence has happened, and there's almost a moment of catharsis where this kid's reuniting with somebody from his past, and then they just pull out this one line, which is such a, and I feel like it's such a mum thing to do. Like, like, I don't know. There's some good moments of like.
The thing is, the line itself isn't a spoiler. As long as you just sort of just say completely out of context, it just is that a tattoo, and you're like, huh?
No, but the writing flip flops for me. I think I don't quite know what it's trying to lean towards, but then it does pay off in like some interesting cathartic ways. But
it pays off and it makes sense to me. I get what it's getting at and what it's trying to do, and without going in too deep and deconstructing it too much, I do think it's a good comic, and it's a good look at the Joker and the certain things that comprise the Joker, and also a good look at Batman through the eyes of the Joker.
Yes. I think for me, in answer to your question of sort of what is it trying to say, again, the framing is questionable in, it could have been done without the framing of basically taking advantage of a very vulnerable young man. But it's almost sort of a look at the side of the Joker that you see when he is cohabiting / abusing Harley. This kid is almost like Harley 2.0 for him. I mean, there's a moment where the Joker's kicked over a barrel of Scarecrow's fear toxin into Gotham's water supply, and he's like, why is nobody trying to stop me? And the kid said something, and he's like, oh, bloody hell, how long have you been here? He means nothing to him. Like, he's just an avatar of fun for him. He doesn't have any ties to him, whereas this kid is like kind of latched his entire existence to the Joker for that moment.
Yeah, but the Joker doesn't care about anybody at his core, and that's that. Yeah. So that was the Joker, Year of the Villain #1. I think that's a solid first entry into our list of comics this week. I quite enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Where do we go from there? Well, I guess we move on to The Mask. Is that what we do? Is that what we do, Marv?
I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, so this is The Mask. I pledge allegiance to The Mask, which is The Mask, as in, well, you will know, a lot of you will know The Mask as Jim Carrey, Somebody Stop Me Smoking, Green-Faced Stanley Ipkiss, The Mask. But anybody who's read the original Mask comics will know that The Mask is actually not called The Mask, he's called Big Head. And it's not actually fun. Well, it is, but it isn't. It's like it's not as fun as as what you've seen on the screen. Let's just say Jim Carrey this ain't.
Yeah, it's not zany humor like cartoonish.
Well, it is.
Over the
it is
top.
Zany humor, cartoonish, but it's not. It's
not without its consequences.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we're back to Edge City. Now, what I'm going to do is there's literally in the book the city is Edge City. So I'm gonna, I will read the blurb. Years ago, a weird mask of unknown origin and limitless power was buried in the cement of an apartment building's basement floor. Edge City and its residents have all but forgotten the mysterious green-faced killer known only as Big Head. But now, decades later, the bizarre Tex Avery-style killings are happening all over again and are on a collision course with a bizarre political campaign where a homicidal maniac wants to make America green again. So, the mask has turned up again in the hands of somebody else. And basically the whole thing with this is that this mask changes hands, and you've got several different kind of iterations of this story where several different people have had the mask, and we get a look at what the mask does to them or lets them do, because the mask is it's basically your inner id. Yeah, it's your id. Your inner desires amplified. And yeah, it is literally your id just coming out, and it just basically, you are a cartoon in the real world, for want of a better way of putting it. When you put this thing on, like, you have cartoon powers, like you can change costume instantly. It's like you are a Looney Tunes slapstick character, but in reality, and able to exact Looney Tunes slapstick violence on people, but this violence has consequences.
I think you're underselling just how dark and violent this is, because you keep saying like cartoony slapstick, but in this issue in particular, I don't think there's much of like slapstick. I think it's actually really brutal, over the top.
I'm about to get onto that.
I was going to say this issue loses basically all of the cartoony side that was in the original run of the Marv comics.
Yes.
Because the movie and the cartoon leaned heavily into this is a cartoon character, but the people that he's doing the cartoon violence to, they have cartoon outcomes. Whereas in the original run of the comic, the Mask is a happy-go-lucky character. Yes, he's a serial killer, but he's having fun. But anyone he sticks a bomb on, or mallets in the head, they have severe head trauma. They blow up and they lose all their teeth. They're not going to just rub the ash off their face and carry on. Yeah. They die. But it's presented in a very funny, slapstick way. Whereas in this comic, the word that I wrote down in my notes is just gruesome and grimdark.
Well, in this, the violence feels more malicious and less parodial.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's amplified, but not the same as the previous incarnations of the book. Like, by comparison, it is missing something. The slapstick doesn't feel so slapstick, possibly because, actually, of the art style, I think. It's because the art leans more towards realism than the previous ones, which changes the feel and the mood a little bit. And it's less bold, cartoony work, because, I mean, if you go back to the original, 4-issue run of The Mask, from the early 90s, or you check out, the original, was it 4 issues?
I'm not sure. I got the omnibuses, so I don't know how...
That's the same as me. I read it from an omnibus, so I don't know. But I think there's an original few issues with Stanley Ipkiss, and then from Stanley Ipkiss, the mask changes hands to a police officer, and the police officer becomes a murderous vigilante rather than a murderer for murder's sake. Like vengeance murder, which is what Stanley Ipkiss does with it. But it's framed in such a way, and the art has such the art style in these original books kind of gives it some bounce. Whereas with this, because it's I can imagine filling someone with Hershey's syrup would actually be funny if it wasn't drawn that way.
Yeah, God. The first page of this comic, the very first page, you get past the credits and everything in the Making America Green Again poster. Yeah. And the first, it's dilapidated shack, cockroaches crawling everywhere, and child abuse.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I guess we're in for a wild ride.
Can I just point out, like, I read this immediately after Joker and thought it was going to be a palate cleanser. So fuck you guys.
Oh wow!
I wasn't expecting this, but I actually had an interesting time with this book. I genuinely really like the artwork. I think it's really it reminded me a lot of Mitch Gerard's work on the recent Mr. Miracle run, but without like the corrupted medium aesthetic, like without all the sellotape and like VHS fuckery that was going on in that comic. But like it's got this washed out, sun bleached, pulpy look. And so, like, I think to the point you were saying, Greg, it's got a very... I feel like the style of it is very noir. Like, it's got this, like, languid noir thing, which makes it, like, suffuses everything with an intensity, which I really wasn't expecting.
I would love a Mask comic done by Mike Allred. Because I think Mike Allred's art style would suit it, and it would look fantastic. And it would actually suit the tone. But I mean, in this, the tone it is like rather dark, rather noir, and it's like the violence doesn't come across in the same way it comes across in the previous incarnations, and I think it is missing something. It's missing that little something. But I'm not saying it's a bad comic for that. It's still good. It's still really good. I'm still enjoying it, but it's just far grimmer. It's a different tone, but it's still an interesting book. It's a good setup that works for new readers and old fans because it draws together threads from the previous books in the series, and it also manages to stay fresh. So you could pick this up and you could get a decent idea of what was going on without having read the previous stuff.
It's a good introduction to like all the past and all the previous like inhabitants of Big Head. I guess I don't know what you would call them, the owners of the mask. Yeah. Like one thing I wanted to say is because again, going off of how much I love the artwork, I think every time you see Big Head in up close is stunning. Like I really love like the amount of texture and detail and like character that's put on his big wide-eyed green, ridiculously toothy face. I think it's genuinely quite beautiful in a disgusting sort of way.
I love it. But it's I mean, I love the character. Like I like the old comics because I like the way that they work. I like them mechanically better than I like this, but I did enjoy this book still. It was still good. So
I think my interest in this book petered out once it got too much into like the other inhabitants of this city. Like I feel like the bookends of this book were much more interesting to me than the middle.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to go back, Ray, and check out the original run, if you could go back and check out some of the original Mass comics, then you'd probably like enjoy them more. Yeah. So like, I mean, the original Mass comics, we're talking like the early 90s and everything, and there are like it was a 5 issues. There we go. That was the original run. I was close with 4. It was 5. It's just because they all blur into one when you're reading them as an omnibus, because the way they've set the omnibus up for this is you don't necessarily get covers in between. It just goes from The Mask to The Mask Returns.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's 5 issues, and it's really, really good. It's like really decent fun. This is like 89 to 91 kind of time. You got The Mask Returns, and then you've got The Mask Strikes Back, then you've got The Mask The Hunt for Green October, The Mask Southern Discomfort, The Mask Toys in the Attic, then there's like the official movie adaptation, The Mask World Tour, Adventures of the Mask, which is based on the animated series that The Mask got.
Oh yeah, I got a couple of issues of that when before I read the original run. When I only watched the film and watched the cartoon, I got the comic that tied in with the cartoon.
Yeah, and then Walter got his own thing. Walter, Campaign of Terror.
Oh, Walter's
he runs for mayor of Edge City in a comic. It's 4 issues long.
He's terrifying in the original run.
Oh, he is. Yeah, he's horrible. He's just he you know what? He's basically Solomon Grundy.
Yeah,
I'd love to see Walter and Solomon Grundy go at it. Night of the Living Ipkiss Kinda, which is like a Halloween type thing. You've got Grifter and the Mask, Lobo Mask, where Lobo and the Mask crossover, and that is fabulously 90s. You've got, it was February to March 1997, and it's peak 90s comics, that is, Lobo and the Mask.
Stop saying the word mask.
Big head, big head, big head.
Yeah, mask. Shit, that's a lot of comics, Craig, to catch up on.
Oh man, yeah,
it's the ones that I read where I think the first 3 lines, so like the mass strikes back, and then whatever the third one was called.
Those are the ones I've read, and I think what happens in these books, what happens in this book when they introduce other characters like the retired cop and everything else, they are all people who've previously worn the mask in previous bits.
Mm-hmm. You'll recognise them even just from the movie, Rahul, because the washed-up policeman in this first issue of this new run is Detective Kellaway from the movie and the cartoon.
Yes, and Detective Kellaway wears the mask in the second sort of like part of the original 5-issue run.
Right. Okay.
And then the lady that's campaigning for, is it senator, governor, and then she's going to try and become president. She is Stanley Ipkiss's ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, I got that from this. Yeah,
and she's Stanley Ipkiss is an asshole in this.
He's horrible. He's an abusive boyfriend with a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah,
like, he is, like you said, Jim Carrey. He is not.
Yeah. Actually, if you want incel fuel, Stanley Ipkiss.
100%.
Just putting that out there. Like, forget the Joker. Yeah. Speaking of, actually, there is a Joker mask crossover.
Oh, that would be insane, I imagine.
Yeah. And there's... Yeah. So that is your list of previous mask comics. But, I mean, that's not all of it, but that's some of the better bits. I actually like this as another entry into the series. I actually like it. I actually do enjoy it. It was good. It just didn't have something that the violence was a bit malicious in this, and it kind of like, I don't know. Maybe that's the point. Maybe it's supposed to be like, well, you're not meant to enjoy this because we're not meant to enjoy violence, are we? We're not meant to be desensitized to it because, I mean, most of us are desensitized to it, unfortunately, but we're not supposed to be, are we? And I maybe it's making that kind of statement, actually. The more I think about it, the more I can actually see that. It's like the whole being desensitized to cartoon violence thing. Like, actually, these things are actually really fucking horrible, So, yeah. Being less jovial maybe works for it, actually. But there we go. That is The Mask, and I will give you The Mask. I pledge allegiance to The Mask. I'll give you the credits for that. So, we've got Christopher Cantwell on writing duties. We've got Patrick Reynolds doing art. Lee Luffridge does colours. Nate Piekos of Blambot does letters. So this next one is the second part. Well, the second thing that ties into the Year of the Villain stuff, is it not? The second thing to come spinning out of Dark Knight's Metal, which is the thing. It's like basically the main reason Marv came tonight. I can hear him vibrating in his chair. So excited about this.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But Marv, first I must break you. So yes, Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman, Knightfall. So, this is basically like, it's a big old what if. It's another Elseworldsy type story from the DC universe. It's an interesting look at a failed universe from within the Dark Multiverse. So, it's part of the event that's building to this coming crisis that we've already talked about. The barrier between like the failed Dark Multiverses and the normal multiverse, the 52 worlds, has been shattered, and this is almost like a Marvel What If, but except you've got Tempest Fuginut giving the introduction instead of the Watcher, and the way the book is, Tempest Fuginut, yeah. The way the book is like introduced and plays out, it is pretty much almost like a Marvel What If. This is all coming from the events of Dark Knight's Metal. obviously, as a massive Bat fan, this needed to be read, and also as a massive Knightfall fan, I could not just leave this on the shelf. So, let's give you some kind of blurb from this. So, don't miss the twisted tale from the pages of the game-changing event Batman Knightfall. 30 years after Bruce Wayne was broken and failed to take back the mantle of the Bat, Jean-Paul Valley, now known as Saint Batman, has turned Gotham into the city of his dreams. In his new order, killing has become commonplace and criminals live in constant fear. All in the name of justice. But just when all seems lost, a new hope for Gotham City rises. The son of Bane. So, there we go. All hail Saint Batman, as it saith on the cover of the book. And, I thought this was great fun. Great, edgy fun. Marv, let's, what do you reckon?
I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm very, very glad that the blurb says Son of Bane in that, because there is one line in my notes that is just with a period after each word. It's just Son of Bane. I can't believe that. Yeah. So I thought I was going to have to dance around that, but yeah, no. Some of the characters that appear in this, obviously the whole thing is a big callback to Knightfall, which is one of my favorite trade paperbacks of all time.
Yeah.
And the way that they could have gone anyway. You know, if you just start with the idea that Bruce Wayne lost to Jean-Paul Valley in Night's End, and he continued to be sort of Azrael Batman, and you know Bruce Wayne never took the mantle back. What would the world look like? There's a million different ways you could go with that idea, but what they did in this story, I think, really works with the tone set in Knightfall and Night's End, especially around the way that Jean-Paul Valley is Batman, and also with the events of Dark Knight's Metal and the mood that comic had. I think it rides a really nice line between the tones of those two comics. Yeah,
it's like having another one shot for another failed Batman.
Exactly. Yeah. And as the pages turn, that becomes more and more true.
Exactly. Yes. We do love a bit of scarily failed Batman. But I really did love this book, and I really did love that it was a callback to Knightfall, because I love the Knightfall run. I love the Knightfall arc. I love the way it plays out, and the whole story with Batman being broken and then Azrael taking over. And like you were saying, Marv, what if Batman never managed to wrest the mantle back from Azrael? What if the cowl stayed firmly on Azrael's shoulders? Well, that's what this is. And it was great edgy fun. There's some stunning artwork throughout it. It's especially one of the things I've actually got here in my notes, the recreation of a classic page.
Yes.
As part of a splash displaying the events that led up to the point where the story diverges, that led up to the choice, or rather the kind of less of a choice in this and more of a tipping point. Because it wasn't like Batman chose to lose to Jean-Paul Valley. It's just what if things went the other way? Yeah. Down the toilet instead of where they should have gone. And things did definitely go down the toilet. So, yeah, it's like a recreation of the famous splash page from the Knightfall book where, or one of the, I can't remember which Batman issue that is, but we actually discussed it when Marv was asking us about our favourite panels. He asked us a question, and we talked about our favourite comics panels. And we brought it up. I brought it up, actually. It's where Bane is breaking Batman's back. And it's like this kind of yellow and orange, explosive background, Bane snapping Batman over his knee like a 2x4. And yeah, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And it's just got "break you" in big, striking lettering work. And
the kind of lettering that you'd expect in a Hulk comic or something.
Oh man, every time I talk about it, I want it on a poster, a huge A1 poster that I can frame and hang above my bed or something, just oh man. I mean, Sophie'd never let me, but I just want that poster. But yeah, no, it's a great splash, and I love the fact that they recreated it for this, and I love that this is just such a labour of love to the Knightfall arc.
Definitely. So the attention to detail in all of the little, again, the whole thing is a callback to Knightfall, but the little details that link back to the story, It's not a massive spoiler. It took my breath away when I saw it in the comic, and it's not a massive spoiler, but the fact that Saint Batman is using Venom when in the Knightfall story, Bane's reliance on Venom was something that both Batman, Bruce Wayne and John Paul Valley had disdain for. It's a very succinct way to sort of speak to his fall as Batman.
Yeah. Also, sorry, carry on.
No, the fact that he would rely on basically his enemy's weapon is almost like in Batman Beyond, where Bruce Wayne picks up the gun and he's like, the fact that I even thought of doing this means that I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, exactly. It's fantastic. I love that. And I was going to say, when you were talking about callbacks, there is a point where Batman relies on Venom.
Yes, a very, very, very good run of comics.
Yes,
one of the
Venom.
first that my dad ever showed me. Batman Venom, great storyline.
Yeah, I love that. The gist of that is Batman fails to save somebody, and it's because he wasn't strong enough to lift something out of the way, and it haunts him, and he discovers Venom. And this is all in the run-up to Knightfall, actually, because I think Batman Venom takes place because Venom had hit the streets of Gotham before Bane made it to Gotham. From Pina... what's his island prison called?
I can never remember the name of it without looking at it.
Pina Jura, that's it.
But it is a great... And it's... when you were saying, when he fails to lift something, it's an event that makes you as the reader understand why Batman would become reliant on a strength drug. Because any other situation, you'd be like, Batman wouldn't do that. But to have what happens in that comic happen and to fail in the way that he did, you can understand why he beat himself up that much.
Yeah, and then Bane comes over from Pina Duro, and the rest is history. But it's just, it's you can understand why that would have such an effect on him, and you can kind of see it. Like, you can imagine, him in his head, if this was Clark could have done it, Clark would have saved that kid, and he just knows it, and he knows that he failed because he's simply a man. Poor Batman. But at the same time, this being such a labour of love and being so great and just full of gnarly action panels and great character and environmental design. I'm loving the new Asbat suit.
It's really cool. It's almost like an Assassin's Creed skin.
And
there's certain shots where they have close-ups on his mask, and he almost looks like Batman's Scarecrow because he's got the mask all stitched up and sort of repaired after many, many battles that he's been in and stuff.
He's the Bat Paladin.
But the panel work, like you were saying, there's one page that stood out to me, just masterful panel work, where you've got a full map of Gotham City, and then there's just all these horizontal panels going down the page of all these explosions in different regions. And without the map behind it, it would just be there's a bunch of explosions going on. But the fact that they've got the map behind it, you understand that this is going on simultaneously across the city. It's very good visual storytelling.
I do love that. It's just everything, the design of the crumbling Gotham streets and how claustrophobic it all is with the backdrop of the burning dust sky. And you can just imagine that, when you were reading the Knightfall books, you could just see it in the characters, but you could just imagine a humid summer night in Gotham. Everyone is just hating themselves because it's just so warm and so close and so claustrophobic, and it must stink. But it captured that mood perfectly. It was just the burning dusk of Gotham, and just the fact that it just looked looks like hell.
Yeah, it looks apocalyptic.
Yeah, Azrael is this armored demon paladin just presiding over all of it, but this is his dream.
Yeah, this is exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love the most, because again, we talk about it carrying on the tone of Knightfall and everything. One of the things that struck me, even as a kid reading Knightfall, but rereading it hundreds of times that I have done between then and now, the way that the characters are drawn and written in Knightfall, when you can sense the doom, like way more than the lead up to the death of Superman. I felt none of the doom that they were trying to build up in that, but in Knightfall, like the way that Catwoman is sort of monologuing to herself, even the villains, you can tell that they can sense there's a shift coming in Gotham. When Batman falls and Azrael picks up the mantle, they can all sense something is wrong. There's this horrible sort of encroaching darkness that everyone seems to be affected by, and that carries on into this comic where it's like it's just been 30 years of that and everyone's suffered under.
It's just I cannot express my love for this book enough. As a Batman fan and as a Knightfall fan, and one of these days, Marv, we are going to get you on to do the Knightfall.
I am counting down to it. It's going to be a 4-hour podcast.
Oh yeah, it'll be me and you in green leather wingbacks with with a couple of bottles of whiskey. We'll have a salon about Batman Knightfall.
That sounds like my dream.
Yes.
I'm coming just to watch.
We're going to call it the Batman Knightfall Salon, and it'll just be me and Marv in smoking jackets, just discussing
I have to ask though, 2 questions. One, Rahul, did you read this issue as well?
I didn't, although while you guys were talking about it, I did just pick it up on Comixology, and the artwork is amazing.
It's absolutely
it's really great.
Yeah, it's a beautiful book.
My second question was going to be, what did you think of it as someone who didn't... I don't know if you've read it at all, but who definitely hasn't reread Knightfall as much as me and Greg have.
No, I've not read Knightfall. That's the one that's like comes in 3 doorstoppers, right?
That's the tome.
I haven't read that.
It's absolutely enormous, and it's like it's kind of actually. Is it bigger than Age of Apocalypse? Is there more Knightfall than there is Age of Apocalypse?
I could definitely see that being true.
I think there is, and I think Knightfall's actually way more entertaining than Age of Apocalypse.
I was going to say the thing about Knightfall, and this is just becoming a Knightfall podcast, but the thing about Knightfall is damn near every page is entertaining. Like there's no, let me say it first and then I'll correct myself afterwards. But there's no drop off. No. There's no times where you're thinking to yourself, God, I don't want to be reading this. Yeah. And then I correct myself by saying when they flash back to the whole Two-Face bit, in the second book, they flash back to before the backbreaking, and you've got this long extended Two-Face storyline that comes out of nowhere that really does feel like filler. But apart from that, the whole thing just runs on. It's this carnival ride of just, again, doom, and it's called Knightfall, and it's just the fall of Gotham City. It's great. It's
escalation.
Yes, that's the word I was...
And then it hits a beautiful orange and yellow peak, which is that one page, and then you go down the other side of the mountain, and then you climb back up with a broken back.
And again, it's like the framing and everything. Every issue has the classic Batman symbol, and it's slowly being eclipsed by the new Batman symbol. Yeah, and it gets halfway at the backbreaking, and then by the time you get to the end, when Azrael finally beats Bane, spoilers, it's fully the Asbat symbol. Yeah. It's so good.
It's the eclipse. It's the eclipse of the Bat signal, the eclipse of Gotham, the eclipse of everything that Batman stands for.
Everything about it is done so well.
Indeed.
There's probably someone listening who's like, it's not that good. I like it.
I'll tell you what this reminds me of. Like, just flicking through this comic while you guys are like gushing over it, is how much like I grew up not having access to this stuff, but when I didn't. And maybe it informs the way I am now, but like I'm not that invested in the story, but I love just poring over the artwork. Like, there's something really satisfying about not having to care, like deliberately not letting yourself care about the narrative and like all of the like the different points that come together because you have to read 100 different issues and like continuity and lore and all that stuff. And I just want to see kick-ass poses and like cool artwork, and like I think that's okay. I'm okay with it. I'm cool with just like skipping through this and seeing like all the cool designs and whatever the fuck this badass red Batman type suit is. And
I think that's also the difference between discovering something like this in your formative years and discovering something like this now. Like I discovered this when I was, like a young kid, and like when you are more impressionable. Things are so much more badass and feel so much more life and death when you're reading about them and things like that. And it just I don't know, it just has more of an impact. And I think a lot of it is like me looking back on stuff with rose tinted glasses, because like a lot of the comics that I hold dear from back then, if I probably held them, this is why I like having you on the cast, Ray, as a co-host. This is why you're here, because I can hold these comics up to you, and through my rose tinted glasses, they look amazing, but I can hold them up to you and you can be like, what the fuck is this shit?
Okay, you know what? The thing with that though is like, so if I'm comparing the Joker book we just read and this one, Tales from the Dark Multiverse.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about how like me and Leon are slightly more similar and a little bit apart from you in the sense that we don't need everything explained, and like I enjoy things that are very experiential, and like looking through Tales from the Dark Multiverse, I think there's like a tone and a style and a thing that comes off the page through like consideration of the panel structure and like the blocking and framing of like, you know, the virtual comic camera and all these figures. That's a lot more satisfying to just whiz through than it was with Joker. And I actually spent time, you know, sitting down and reading Joker Year of the Villain, and I feel like already I'm more satisfied by this comic, if you know what I mean. There's just there's something about it, something about the tone that it's giving that feels like satisfying to my sensibilities, and like I can see why you're really into it. I think it's a shame that I don't have the the background, like I don't have that thing you said about the formative years, and I also don't have the attention span to like commit to this story, but like god damn, I love this artwork. It's really cool. There's one panel, like I think I'm about halfway through the book, where I think it's a flashback, and there's like this sepia tinted moment through the eyes of a child, I think.
Oh yeah. I know the panel you're talking about.
Yeah, like I could have this printed, like I would have this as a wallpaper or something, or like printed on my into a frame on my wall. It's spectacular.
It's almost Renaissance. The posing of it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's great.
But
it could have been painted on the inside of a church, maybe.
Yeah, the Church of Saint Batman.
The Church of Saint Dumas.
Going back to what you were saying, Greg,
yeah.
About the difference between reading it in your formative years and sort of being ingrained in the story, and then what Rahul was saying about sort of dipping in and poring over the artwork and the structure. I lie firmly in the middle of both of those points, because I did read Knightfall right at the right time, in probably, well, definitely the same time as you, because obviously it came out at a particular time in history. But reading Knightfall then and getting completely sucked in, and, you know, spinning off and reading about the return of Bane and, you know, all these different stories that came off of Knightfall around the same time that I was really getting into Spider-Man in a big way and just discovering Venom and becoming an edgelord and all of that stuff, it kind of fell away. And so for like, I mean, we've talked about it the last couple of times that I've been on the cast, and we've talked about my comic history, but I didn't follow comics for a long time after that. And so I would dip in, and much like Leon and Rahul, I would read trade paperbacks. I'd read contained stories where I didn't have to know that Lex Luthor had become half Martian and become Apex Lex.
I just love that. Just love Apex Lex.
But I would read these contained stories, or these completely nothing to do with the normal superhero canon, sort of Watchmen v for Vendetta style stories, where it's like, this is the story, this is the beginning and the end, and I would really love it. But in the meantime, I would flick through single issues of the latest Spider-Man or the latest Batman and be like, what the hell is going on? This looks amazing. So it's kind of not the best of both worlds, but like crumbs of both of your experiences over the years.
Yeah. And I'll see you, Apex Lex, at Crisis 2020.
For the championship belt, rage in a cage.
Apex Lex. Damn. If there ever was a name.
Oh, God.
So, yes, that is Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman Knightfall #1. And that is written masterfully by Scott Snyder and Kyle Higgins. Drawn beautifully by Javier Fernandez. Coloured exquisitely by Alex Guimarães. And lettered perfectly by Clayton Cowles. And from there... Ray, you've been reading Resonant.
I have. In fact, I know we structured this for me to like split up the two comics that I wanted to talk about. I'm gonna talk about them back to back because I know you guys will want to gush about the final comic this week. So I'll dive into Resonant first. But we talked about Resonant issue number 1 in episode 64, I think it was. It's a new comic from Vault Comics, writing by David Andre, art by Alejandro Aragon, colors by Jason Wordy, and letters by Darren Bennett. Set in a dystopian world corrupted by a signal which causes people to self-harm. And like we follow the story of a father leaving his home to get medicine for his children, essentially. And I liked it because it's kind of like a verdant apocalypse where, you know, nature has taken back the land, but there are still plenty of humans to fear from. And so with this one, I think the thing that I really love is like Alejandro Aragon's art is like slathered in these Ben-Day dots and other really disruptive textures, but like the blocking and framing of each page retains a lot of clarity. Like thinking again, I keep going back to I always do this every week where I find the comic that I like the least and point out the things that the comic I like the most does better. But like I think that each page retains a lot of clarity in Resonant despite having a lot of disruptive textures. It's not claustrophobic and it leaves a lot of space for where these colors to pop through, and I really like that. And like the whole team as a unit really shines in the moments in the story when this resonant signal cuts in and affects the population, and like the pacing, the art, like the pacing of the narrative, the art, the colors, and then Darren Bennett's lettering, like the mesmerizing repetition of chirp, 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 working together to really give a sense of like this immediate panic and dislocation. And so issues number 2 and 3, which I read today or this week, continue this adventure and takes the story from a dystopian slice of life, which is kind of what it was in issue 1, and into more of an adventure fair, which I'm not super keen on, but it jumps into this larger world really quickly. And I think I would have been happy for it to languish in its setting a little bit longer, but again, that's a very me thing maybe. But like with this pace comes a really surprisingly wide variety of locations and scenarios, which means there's just more opportunity for the artwork to be doing something different constantly. And it has some of my favorite silent panels, and you know I love silent panels. I like art that doesn't have any text over it. And one of the best single page art pages I've seen this year, like there's this one in particular in issue 3, which has like it captures this sense of solitude and despair and impatience and resignation with such colorful flair that again I could easily cut it out and frame it and put it on my wall. So I wanted to shout out Resonant just that one more time. I don't know if I'll talk about issue number 4 on the next cast. I think maybe I'll wait till there's a trade paperback and convince you guys to catch up on it. But I think it's a worthy pick for now, and Vault are still putting out good work. Like I don't know if you've caught up on these, have you, Greg?
Not with Resonant, no. But I just want to draw attention to last episode and the fact that we read a stormer of a Vault comic.
Which one was that again?
The Plot.
The Plot, right. I don't think I've caught up on that one.
Yeah, Vault are doing the new Knightfall thing now, where they basically... Yeah, that's right, Knightfall. You heard. No, they...
I'm back in the game.
Marv's listening again. No, they're... they're doing this like, line of horror comics called Vault. It's called Vault Knightfall, and they're going to release... around this time of year, every year, they're going to release horror comics on the Knightfall label, which sounds pretty cool.
I do just want to say before you continue, Rahul, that like listening to you talk about that comic makes me want to read it so bad, because it's like, having not experienced it, it's like listening to someone describe the taste and texture of the perfect steak dinner. Like, you're making me hungry for this artwork and this structuring. It's
so colourful while having such a grim plot, and I think this is what I like. I like artwork that kind of undercuts the like the severity of the world that it's in, and this one does that really well, where it's still a really dark tale. It's it's this horrific post-apocalyptic world where everybody's out for themselves, but it doesn't have to be like slathered in greys and darks, dark reds and everything to make it work. If anything, it's heightened by this sense of like vibrancy, because the world has taken, like Mother Nature's taken back over. It's really good. I really like it. Sorry, go on.
You were going to move on and talk about everything?
Yeah, I think I'll dive into everything issue number 2 quickly. Let me just pull up the credits for that. So this is a Burger book. It's written by Christopher Cantwell. It has art by I.N.J. Culberd, lettering by Steve Wands. And we dived into chapter 1 a few weeks ago. And I assume that issue number 2 picks up where issue number 1 left off. I mean, I don't know. It feels like a distant and rapidly fading fever dream, and one that didn't even make sense in the process, let alone after post-processing. Oh. But issue number 2 is just as discomforting as I remember issue 1 being. Because I didn't go back and reread 1. I think I should. But this book is just full of jarring moments of whiplash and narrative interruption. And it has moments where there's an accelerated building of images over clashing colors, culminating in religiously bombastic alien faces. It has a meandering chant interrupted by the sudden and casual commencement of a silent memorial procession where uniformed shop staff pout and throw confetti along the shopping aisles. And then this moment is punctuated by a full page of gun adverts, including a dog stoically sat in front of a rack of rifles and a woman's torso. You only see her torso. You don't see her head or her feet, but you see this woman's torso wearing a US flag bikini with a pistol tucked into the pants. And it's not so much scary as it is bewildering in a sensory overload sort of way. And I really like that. I really like that I can think about it as much or as little as I like. And I don't know if I have much else to say about it. It's if you, again, using that word, experiential, if you like stuff that's just there to, I don't want to use the word just, for me, it inflamed this sense of overstimulation and like I said, sensory overload and dislocation and not really quite getting what the plot is, but getting this sense of dread and evil in the backlot of this shopping mall that popped up out of nowhere. I think you'll dig this. I know you like it, Greg.
Oh, I absolutely love this comic. I have nothing but good things to say about this book.
Did you read number 2?
Yeah. And everything you said about it, it feels even more like it's holding a mirror up to the world.
Mm.
In issue 2, I can see that even more, holding a mirror up to retail and the world than I could in issue 1. And obviously there's this undertone of some weird signal going out over the town and everything else, and it's all very Twin Peaks in that way. Because it's got this kind of this very, for me, it's got this very Twin Peaksy tone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that I think I really love about it as well.
I think I'd say Twin Peaks by way of X-Files. It's got a bit more of a sci-fi edge. It's got a bit more of sinister underpinning, whereas Twin Peaks was more
spiritual,
spiritual and vibe to give momentum to this overarching mystery, murder mystery plot.
Yeah.
One thing I've just noticed, I've reopened this book. The first page where it has the credits basically has an excerpt from every single one of my favorite moments of this book. It has the balls to give its best moments right from the start, just out of context. And then when you find the context, it doesn't really give you that much more context. It's really cool. I really I dig the
I like that I'm just having jigsaw pieces thrown at me violently.
Yeah, I like that. I like just being cannon t-shirt cannon into your face.
And then I have to sit there and put them all together while they're reloading the t-shirt cannon.
Yeah.
And hopefully I've assembled some of the jigsaw by the time number 3 comes out, because I'm going to get hit again.
It's so wild, though, because even the little adverts and stuff, there's something really sinister about seeing a couple wearing the same checked shirt and canoodling in bed next to the a stark black and white silhouette of a fire. It's just odd. There's some really interesting
Have you ever looked at these side by side with real adverts?
I mean, real adverts from the 60s or 70s, they're not that far off. They're obviously inspired by, I don't know, whatever the catalogs would have been.
There's something unnerving about some adverts you see today anyway. I'm talking about adverts as in, if you see catalogue adverts and things. Adverts that you might see for...
perfumes and stuff.
Yes, clothing, perfumes, things like that you will just see on bus shelters or popping up in the middle of your Facebook feed because you're more likely to be looking at that than the bus shelter when you walk down the street. But
this is more like wish.com than
exactly.
You know what I mean?
It is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucked up. It's really good.
I feel like wish.com is like, what's that thing they call the thing in Hellraiser that they... Oh, what's the puzzle called?
The puzzle box. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, wish.com came out of that. I'm 100% sure wish.com came out of that.
A monkey's paw of a nap.
What was it? The lament configuration.
Yes, what a goddamn name.
That's fucking great. Yeah.
That's where wish.com came from.
Some days you're scrolling through your Facebook feed and you just see the most outlandish shit on Wish.
And like it gives you this weird paranoia that you've done something to influence those adverts. But I know for sure I've not been looking at Speedos. Like I know that I haven't. So why is it showing me that? What does it know about me that I don't know about myself?
You're a man. You're in your mid-30s. You like Speedos.
I don't understand like the full face cat masks and stuff.
Yeah,
some of it just looks like horror movie shit. Yeah.
Oh my god. Wish.com is a mess. Wish is a mess.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Yeah. And we don't want to be either.
No, I'm fine. I don't want your blood money.
Yeah. Jeez. It's like, yeah, no. But anyway, yeah, everything's great, and it basically encapsulates everything that gives me the heebie-jeebies about modern consumerism. Yeah, and from there we move on to our final comic today, which is called The Batman's Grave. Now, this is the latest Warren Ellis thing. This is Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch, who have come together to give us this wonderful Batman story. Wonderful, macabre Batman story called The Batman's Grave. It's one of the best kind of Batman stories in my eyes anyway. Like these Batman stories that get really deep and psychological, these Batman stories that are at their core just detective tales, which is what Batman is good at. These Batman stories that are short but deep enough and meaningful enough to leave an impression. The kind that you will buy as a trade, and you will find on the shelves of people that probably don't even read that many comic books. And this is Warren Ellis with Brian Hitch on pencils, Kevin Nolan on inks, Alex Sinclair on colours, and Richard Starkings doing lettering. And yeah, so this is some stunning work from Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch. It's an exploration of Batman's vulnerable psyche through a classic Batman-style detective story. So, if I give you the blurb, the world's greatest detective must try to inhabit the mind of a murder victim to solve a case, without filling the empty grave next to those of his parents. Can Batman imagine the life of a corpse with a half-eaten face without dying himself? Indeed. So, it's Batman getting into the mind of the victim. Batman is ever the victim. And, like, you kind of think that when he's doing what he does, when Batman does what he does he do it because he feels everyone's pain and wants to exact vengeance on behalf of everyone, of all of Gotham? Or is he doing this because he still feels we know he still feels his own pain, but is he doing it just because he still feels his own pain? Now, there's some awesome sequences here when Batman is inhabiting the mind of the victim and he becomes the victim in the panels. He takes on the appearance of the corpse, and the comic it just basically explores the psychological toll that this would take on Bruce Wayne. So you get the impression that every time Bruce does this, every time he gets so close to the victim, he kind of leaves something behind. It takes something out of him. Like when he's surrounds himself with death all the time. Like his whole raison d'etre is the death of his parents, right?
Yeah.
And he just lives so deep in this hole that, I mean, Alfred says it best in a couple of lines that I'm not going to spoil because they're really good lines. But basically Batman is already in his grave is the gist of it. And yeah, it's just a fantastic exploration of that, of Batman's self-destructive nature, like, but not self-destructive in a physical way, as we've seen a number of times where Batman puts himself through days and days and days on end without sleep, and you know, the most severe pain and beatings a human body could take without falling apart.
Pushing himself well
he
beyond
pushes
his
himself well beyond the limits of the human body, and you know, he takes some real severe punishment at times. And we've seen that side of the self-destructiveness of Batman, the selflessness of Bruce Wayne, of Batman, what he puts himself through, a martyr for Gotham City, if you like. But what we're seeing in this as well is the destruction on a psychological level. So what this does to his mind. And it's not necessarily Batman getting into a scrap or Batman getting injured and coming back from that. It's Batman trying to imagine the life of this victim and getting into this victim's head and what that does to his mind, doing that over and over again as he does every time he solves a murder. And just like the art in this perfectly conveys the mood. It just, the toll that this takes on Bruce, it conveys Alfred's anxiety in this, like the way Alfred deals with this. Like Alfred in this drinks, at the end, you know, like towards the end of his shift, he has a drink and listens to music, and that's how he deals with the fact that this man that he sees as his son is going out every night and damn near killing himself, or, you know, like being a victim in his head, like bringing up all these feelings, dredging up all these feelings of being a victim when he was a kid and his parents died, dredging all that back up to help him solve a murder. And how painful that must be for him, and what that must be doing to him. And Alfred's just like hates to watch it, hates to see it. And because Alfred loves Bruce. Mm-hmm. And it's like the idea that in performing this duty to Gotham, in the memory of his parents, he's destroying himself and bringing himself ever closer to the grave. And I just think it's I just think it's such a great first issue. It's such a great introduction to this story. Like I said, some of the best work in this is when Batman is kind of he's doing his thinking and he's in a simulation of the crime scene, and he is getting into the mind of the victim, and slowly as he does that, as it walks us through the victim's day, as Batman is imagining being the victim, what the victim does daily, you know, like looking at the different things around the room, guy's interests, whatever else, Batman slowly becomes the corpse. Mm. And I just think that's great. And I cannot wait for more of this. I absolutely loved this as a first issue. This was brilliant. And I want to see I want to see the places this takes me. I want to see the places this takes Batman and the places this takes Bruce. I
have to ask, because as you were describing that, I mean, it's pulling me in more and more. But the two things that it made me think of, the two things that it reminded me of, are both ironically named Arkham Asylum. It made me think of the first time that I read the Arkham Asylum trade paperback, and the moment in the Arkham Asylum video game where you're going through the Scarecrow part, and yes, Scarecrow's making Bruce relive the murder of his parents, and the corpses, you know, the corpses of his parents are berating him for not being there for him and everything. Does this comic give you that same sort of feeling of Batman's psyche slowly unraveling?
Less of that, less overt than that, more insidious creep. Okay. So we know that he's doing this to himself. We can see that he's not right. And Alfred sees this too. And Alfred can't stop him. And he's just doing what Batman does, but you can see that doing what Batman does takes a toll on him. We don't get the visual of him, you know, because I think there's been so many books where we've seen Batman's parents die. I cannot count the number of times I have seen a page where I've seen dead Waynes. Like, but it gives you all of that without having to show you all of that, if you catch my drift. Yeah,
you get all of the trauma without all the reliving.
Yes. because what he's actually reliving is he's getting into the mind of this other victim, this other murder victim, and he inhabits the body of this murder victim, and it's almost it's so macabre in the way that the art works, in the way that it does that, in the way that Batman all of a sudden takes on the appearance of this corpse and is walking around this room as this half-eaten dead body. It's just, but yeah, I mean it's just great. It's such a great story, classic Batman detective tale, some classic Batman for your trade shelf. I have to say, it is rather good. Yes, so that was the Batman's Grave number 1, and that rounds us off. That's the end of the list. We move on to this week's pull list. So, Ray, do you want to kick us off for this Wednesday when this podcast will be available, which will be October 23rd?
Yeah, I've only got a couple for this week. I didn't actually find anything that caught my eye for the week after. So, as you said, for the 23rd, Money Shot number 1, which is something that Vault Comics has been teasing for a long time. I'm not entirely sure of the particulars, but all I know is that it's written by Tim Seeley.
Been teasing, have they?
They've definitely been teasing. Basically, it looks a bit like Sex Criminals, but with more of a what's the term? Like an ensemble cast. I'm not really sure what it is, but it's Vault and it looks sexy and it looks like it's got cool artwork, so I'm into it. That'll be out on the 23rd, and then also Fearless number 4, which is a Marvel comic. Now it turns out I didn't hear about what this run was, but Fearless seems to have the tagline. Sorry, Fearless has the tagline: "The fiercest ladies of the Marvel universe unite." And so the first few issues have been, I think, about like Captain Marvel, and let me just have a quick scan through here. Sorry, 1 second. I don't actually recognize any of the characters. I'm really sorry. But like, the reason number 4 caught my eye is because it's focused on Ms. Marvel, so I'm going to be picking that up. Those are my 2 picks for this week.
Yeah, so this week for me is rather quiet. You've got a couple of things. You've got Count Crowley, Reluctant Monster Hunter number 1. Struck me as rather Halloweeny, and we've got this punk girl on the front with this pumpkin necklace, Misfits face paint, just everything you love about Halloween. Oh, she's got a bottle of Jim Beam as well, by the looks of it, and a pistol. She's in a throne. There's some arms reaching out from the back. It's very classic horror. It's very great looking. And this is aspiring reporter Jerry Bartman is furious when she's demoted to hosting the nightly creature feature at her small town TV station. But Jerry quickly learns that there is more to horror hosting than just introducing bad B movies. Her first night in the costume of her missing predecessor, Count Crowley, finds her face to face with a living, breathing werewolf. Or was she just that drunk? I don't know about you, but that sounds amazing. So I'm well on for that. And this is David Dasmalakian as the writer, and Lucas Kettner is the artist and cover artist. We've also got Lauren Aff on there. So I am looking very forward to this. This is something that is on my list, and I want to pick this up and read it because it sounds absolutely exquisite. Let's just hope it lives up to my hype. The next one is I've got the Mole number 3, which we've talked about the Mole a few episodes ago now. We got a preview of it and we reviewed it. It was very good. Check it out. That's another one on Vault Comics. We've got Marauders number 1, which is something spinning out of the recent Hox and Pox, House of X and Powers of X. Now, this one, Marauders, is it's like one of the many X-Men teams that sort of spun out of House of X and Powers of X. It's one of the 6 new series that we've got coming out of that. And so yeah, the X-Men sail at dawn. Even in this glorious new dawn, mutant kind faces hardships and oppression from their human counterparts. Led by Captain Kate Pride and funded by Emma Frost and the Hellfire Trading Company, Marauders, Storm, Pyro, Bishop and Iceman sail the seas of the world to protect those hated and feared. Mutant pirates.
Yes, it sounds great.
Ex-pirates. Yeah.
So succinctly put.
Yeah.
And that's Jerry Duggan on writing duties for that. You've got Matteo Loli as an artist. You've got a load of variant covers for this, but yeah, it's really cool. In fact, there's a really cool cover for this actually. There's the Red Queen variant, which has got Kate Pride in a kind of like old schooly captainy jacket, and she's got her fists kind of up to the front cover, kind of leaning over slightly, in that way when you want to show off your knuckle tattoos, and it says "Hold Fast" on there, and I'm just like, yes, want that cover, please. So yeah, that is Marauders #1. I mean, like, I kind of promised myself I wouldn't buy every X comic that came out of Hox and Pox, but I'm kind of going to break that promise, aren't I? Because these are all looking so really good. Like,
you were always going to break that promise.
It's a new renaissance for X-Men. Like, I'm down with this, man. Hox and Pox were amazing. They brought me back on board with X-Men. I want to follow X-Men again. 10:30, so this is the day before Halloween. So get your costumes ready. Remember to be ready for the big giveaway. That's a Halloween reference. I don't know if any of you got that. You know, the happy Halloween.
Oh, the second one, the Season of the Witch.
Yes.
Yeah. Silver
Shamrock, yes.
I'm so glad Marvin's here. I did not get that.
I was actually listening to that advert today. Do you know it's on Spotify?
Really?
Yes. Anyway, yeah, I was listening to that on my way to work. So that is, you've got the Savage Avengers annual #1. Now, we've talked about Savage Avengers before. I love Savage Avengers. Marv, did you ever read Savage Avengers?
No, I didn't get around to it. No. I was really interested by it, though.
Yeah, it's bloody good. But the annual is doing something a little different. It's like a little side story. Get this for a blurb. A barbarian walks into a brothel, and thus begins another adventure in the life of Conan of Samaria. Human traffickers finally meet an immovable human. Black Widow is drawn into the intrigue by following the trail of bodies left by Kulangath's henchmen, and a last prayer from one of the trafficked women summoned an unexpected angel, the son of Satan himself, Damon Hellstrom. It's the Marvel team-up you didn't know you needed until now. Yes, indeed. I want it. Give it to me. We've got Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #99. The cover of which is Splinter behind bars. A caged rat. And this is all in the lead up to issue 100. And it's all very exciting for Turtles fans. I won't bore you with what's happening in Turtles comics right now, Ray and Marv, because it's just... But there's a new turtle. There's 5 of them now. And she's really cool.
Female turtle?
Yeah, she's really cool. And I'm looking forward to issue 100. I'm looking forward to this new Genesis for Turtles that seems to be on the cards, because I think they're having a new creative team for issue 100. And then onwards it's going to be handled by somebody else entirely, and I'm really looking forward to that. We've got Batman.
I just want to say, by the way, it's never boring listening to you talk about Turtles. It's like genuinely infectious hearing your enthusiasm. Yeah.
Okay, well, I just feel like I say words and people just switch off because they don't understand the words.
That's their problem.
Batman Annual #4 is out on that day. Silver Surfer Black #5, which is like the penultimate issue. Silver Surfer Black. Excalibur #1, which, guess what, is another X-Men one. Now, this one excites me more. And... that is because this is Excalibur, and this is Apocalypse involved in this one. So, mutant kind has always been special, as has their relationship with the world, or worlds around them. As this new era dawns, a new connection forms between the mutants and the magic of the world, and that of the Otherworld. Can the new Captain Britain forge a new way through the chaos with her companions Rogue, Gambit, Jubilee, Richter, and Apocalypse? I'm very, very much into this. This is written by Tini Howard. who I like from. She did like this really cool Thanos run. It's very good. And this is looking like some Prime X-Men book. So I'm down with it. We've got Tales from the Dark Multiverse, The Death of Superman.
I'm hyped.
Yes. So you should be. So this is kind of like well, let me dig you out a blurb. The Dark Multiverse takes on the highest selling comic book event of all time, The Death of Superman. In a broken world, much like our own, Lois Lane, twisted by rage and grief, becomes the Eradicator and takes revenge on those who let Superman die. And the corrupt world he could never defeat. Now, with the power of a god, she's going to end the battle by any means necessary, and the reign of Superman will be over before it begins.
Nice.
Yes. Down with that. Don't know about you, Marv, but I'm down with that.
100%. I'll be getting that.
Yes.
I didn't think I'd have anything for the pull list, but that's on my pull list.
We've also got a couple of horror book, a new horror book and a new fantasy book coming from DC. So I think these were things that might have been Vertigo if Vertigo still lived. But these are on DC Black Label now. So we've got this new fantasy comic called The Last God, Book 1 of the Fellspire Chronicles. So this is DC trying their hands at fantasy. The Last God tells the story of two fellowships of heroes struggling with the same threat, 30 years apart. One group will doom their world, the other must save it. 30 years ago, a band of heroes travelled beyond the borders of creation and killed the last living god, saving the realm of Cain and Un from apocalyptic army of the undead. The legendary companions became the rulers of their world and ushered in a new era of peace and prosperity. But it did not last. Now the foul legions of the last god march once more, laying waste to all of Cain and Un, and revealing that the aging fellowship may not be the great heroes they claim to be. With the world burning down around them, a new group of unlikely champions must band together and accomplish what no other has done, kill the last god once and for all. So this is like a dark fantasy story from Philip Kennedy Johnson, your writer, and Dean White, artist. We also have Jared Blando doing art as well. Now, I look at the cover of this, and I basically just see a death metal album with the wrong logo on it. Or some kind of like battle metal, speed metal album or something, thrash. I don't know. It looks like it sounds gnarly. But I want to read it because I do like my fantasy stuff, so I will check this out. What else have we got? We've got this thing called Basket Full of Heads, which this one goes out to you, Marv, because this is one.
That's out next week?
I thought October 30th.
Damn, that makes so much sense. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one.
Yeah. So, Basket Full of Heads #1, released on October 30th, 2019 by DC Comics. This is part of a pop-up comic line that DC are doing.
Mm-hmm. Hill House Comics.
Yes, and guess who's in charge of that? Joe Hill.
Marv's...
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was going to say Marv's about to explode.
Yeah.
So
you've got
pull list is growing.
Several titles. There's 5 monthly titles coming out of this. You've got Basket Full of Heads. You've got Daphne Byrne. You've got the Dollhouse Family, the Lolo Woods, and Plunge. Plunge being my favourite one of the 5, but like just off the covers. The Lolo Woods looks kind of cool as well, actually. Lolo Woods. It kind of has this like... okay, so if you look at the cover for the Lolo Woods, and then if you look at a... I'm doing it again, aren't I? There's a cover for a Drone album by a band called Earth, called Drone. I say Drone, I mean... Is it? No, more like Doom. Yes, Doom, not Drone. But it's a Doom rock album called The Bees Made Honey in the Lion's Skull. And
nice.
Kind of has a really similar vibe to that, apart from there's not 2 kids standing on top of it. But yeah, so Basket Full of Heads has got the kid from It with a basket that appears to be full of heads, shrouded in the American flag and a hatchet.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's basically Georgie in his yellow hood.
Yeah.
Doing what Greg just described. Yeah.
Yeah. The rain lashes the grassy dunes of Brody Island, and seagulls scream above the bay. A slender figure in a raincoat carries a large wicker basket, which looks like it might be full of melons, covered by a blood-stained scrap of the American flag. This is the story of June Branch, a young woman trapped with 4 cunning criminals who have snatched her boyfriend for deranged reasons of their own. Now she must fight for her life with the help of an impossible 8th century Viking axe that can pass through a man's neck in a single swipe and leave the severed head still conscious and capable of supernatural speech. Each disembodied head has a malevolent story of its own to tell, and it isn't long before June finds herself in a desperate struggle to hack through their lies and manipulations, racing to save the man she loves before time runs out. Plus, the premiere chapter of the backup story Sea Dogs, which sails across all the Hill House Comics titles. So Sea Dogs is going to run in the back of all of them. And that is Joe Hill is the writer there. The artist on this is Leo Max. Yes, it's looking good. These are all looking very good.
Yeah, looking forward to this.
Exciting times, yes. And that rounds off the pull list. And I guess that's everything for this episode of Ace Comicals. That has been Ace Comicals, episode number 24. You can find us at www.acecomicals.com, which is kind of the hub for everything we do. On there, you'll find links to our Twitter. We're called Ace Comicals on Twitter. We're called Ace Comicals on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram under Ace Comicals. Get involved, DM us, at us, whatever you want to do. Ask us about the comics we've been reading. Get involved with the conversation. Tell us if you've read anything we've read and whether you liked it or not. If you have any questions or comments, please reach us at acecomicals@gmail.com or on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter under @Bato. Ray, where can we find you?
On Twitter @Monkeh, so that's @MOONKEH.
Marvyn, where can we find you?
On Twitter @Marvyn Lafayette, and on Instagram, and that's Marv Lafayette 84.
And do you have anything you want to plug, Marv?
Nothing in particular to plug this time around. Just going to say that being off work at the moment, I'm finally going to get round to cracking open Ice Cream Man and starting Doomsday Clock, I think.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, do it. You will not regret it. Those are some fine comics there. So that has been Ace Comicals number 74. That is Ace Comicals, over and out.